Okay, I'm going to do a brief rundown on Excalibur's RPD. I've got a model I brought in that's ready for a partial framework, and I'll just do a single model. To do two, I'm still working on modifying the code so that you can do two without having to go back and start again type thing. But in the meantime, doing one at a time, there's nothing wrong with it, just might take a little longer. So right now, what we do is this is the screen. If I press 1 on the numpad, it'll take me to the front view. 7 will look down, and that's not what we want when we're looking down. So we need to change this. On the Models tab, you would go into your prep work and toggle quad view. But you can do the same thing in RPD just by pressing Control-Alt-Q. Same exact view. R to rotate. And you can see I'm rotating on this origin, which drives me crazy. I double right click. Go to set origin to geometry. It's just a quick way to do that. I'm going to grab it and bring it down so we're roughly in the middle. Again, I'm looking down, looking the right way, but if I was looking at a lower, this is an upper, so I'm going to rotate from this view, flip it around. I can see my midline where it's supposed to be, so up here I'll just rotate it a little bit. It looks like it should be about there. And that's pretty reasonable. To help with the survey, I can look at this from the side and kind of pre-survey by view and kind of see that even though the model was trimmed in one direction, realistically that's going to be closer to a proper survey. So if I'm happy with it, I can press Control-Alt-Q again to exit. And now I'll start this up. We're going to select the model, make sure it's highlighted. Select RPD, working model. There's no opposing right now. I didn't have one for this case, so I'm just going to select with no opposing. That creates an artificial opposing over here. Let's see, we'll just move right down the line. Duplicate. I like to duplicate because I prefer to do an offset. We found that with 3D printed models, 0.06 to 0.07 is really good offset. That's the displacement of the model. So the offset value, I typically leave it at 0.06. If you want it looser, you do like 0.08. You can do 1/10 if you want to. Whatever you want. You want it tighter, again, you just shrink this down. But we're going to go ahead and apply that, and that made a duplicate. The duplicate is found underneath working model. It says original model, and it's hidden. You can't see it, but if you ever need to turn it on, you can. And now we'll go down to surveying the upper model. Alright, so survey comes in. And we'll just take a look at the proposed blockout. Like I said, because I pre-aligned it, it usually comes in pretty good. I don't know that I need to change it. If I do want to change it, I can orient it to the view I want to rotate the model in. And if I wanted to tip it up a little more, this does have a leg. I can move the mouse. When I left click, that will set it. And if that's more appealing to what you want, you can go ahead and apply that. To accept it, we just click on accept the survey, and this will allow us to then sculpt away some of the pink. It's supposed to replicate like blockout wax. We can sculpt that away to expose some undercuts. Okay, so now we've got the wax on the model. And let's see, we're going to do class over here. So I would want an undercut. It brings you in on this sculpt tool. It's called draw, and it's on a positive. We want to go negative, so you can just switch it up there. You see it's just taking away some of that pink. I'm just going to clean it up a little bit, give myself a nice spot to put the end of my clasp. And it looks like the other one would come up here, and I don't see anything for retention there. So we'll put that one on the lingual. I like to give myself guidance. I'm not sure if that's appropriate or not, but that's what I like to do. We'll check the other side. Again, this one's going to come over here. And again, nothing on that, so we'll come over here. I want to see a little orange. There it is. Clean up my little path. Alright, so if we're happy with the sculpting, you can always add if you want to. Just change it to add if you wanted to beef something up. You can. That's not relevant. So when you're done with your sculpting, if you want to smooth things, you can. Whatever you want to do. But when you're done, you want to create a blockout model. Click on that button. And it's going to mesh the model and the pink blockout together and make one model to design to. Alright, so now we've got a model, and you can still see where the undercuts are. If you want to turn the undercuts off, you can right over here. I usually leave them on. We'll jump on down. We don't need to do a lower survey. So we'll come down here to RPD design. First thing we're going to do is design the relief wax, which will be where you want your acrylic to go. Now, if I design this stuff and you're like, what's he doing? I'm not a removable technician, so I'm making my best guess based off of partials I've dealt with throughout my career. So don't judge too harshly here. I know we need some area for the acrylic. This is going to create like the space underneath the mesh for the acrylic to fit into. I like to call it a saddle. I'm not sure if that's the right term. Looks good to me, so now we'll extract it. The thickness, I'm not sure what it's supposed to be. I think I usually put it at 0.7 millimeters. It comes in default at 1 mil. I'm not sure. It always feels like 7/10 to me. It doesn't feel like quite a full mil when I see it. But whatever it's supposed to be, you can apply it. After you select your thickness, just click on Apply Relief Wax. And that's going to mesh the two pieces together. Now throughout your designing process, it's always good on any CAD software, including Blender, to save the file periodically in case it crashes. You can go back to the last saved point. So I kind of put reminders up in this where you see Save Blend File. Most of them work. I know there's a couple that don't quite work, so I was trying something different. But you click on it, then you can just name it and save your file. And don't need to do it right now. If it crashes, it crashes. But we'll go right on down to design the clasp. I use this for a lot more than just the clasps. And even though it's saying 1 millimeter, it's subjective because it's 1 millimeter from top to bottom, or 2 millimeters, etc. For my clasp, I think what I've done in the past is a 2 millimeter. I'm going to grab and move this. Grab this one and move it in. Control A to resize. Come back to this one. I'm going to move it a little bit closer now. And we're going to extrude. And this time I'm going to come up and through. Come back. Control A to shrink that. Grab it to place it where I want it. I'm going to go ahead and go up this guy just a little bit. Control A to enlarge it. Yeah. So it's getting funky. I'm going to avoid that. Grab it. Oh, there's two of them. That's why they're really close to each other. Alright, so we'll leave that one be, and I'll just fill that in when I sculpt. So right now I've got one clasp, and so I'd hit apply clasp. I'm going to go ahead and go to, I like to start where my retention is. Alt, right click. Let's say we want this one smaller. We're going to go 1.5 millimeters. And now it's pointing the wrong direction, so I'm just going to press G to grab it and swing it right around. I'm going to click on this one to position it just a little bit deeper. I'll click back on this one. I'm going to enlarge it just a little bit. E to extrude. I'm going to come along and right up, right alongside this guy. Shrink that down to a nice little point. I'm going to extrude so I have something for a little bit of a rest seat. And I'm going to go ahead and apply that clasp. Now I'll come over here and do the same thing. Alt, right click, place my starting point. Let's just do a 2 mil. Again, G to start it out. I'm going to resize this side. Grab it a little bit. Place it right in there. Come back. And pick it up. That looks pretty good. We'll apply it. Again, right click. And we'll just do a 2 mil on this side too. Control A, resize it, left click to place, and come back up, E, up, right there. Alright, we'll apply that one. Now I like to go ahead and place my major connectors in here using this as well. So I'm going to do a 3 mil. Again, it might supposed to be 2. I don't know. I'm going to do a 3. I'm going to grab this. I'm actually going to start it right up into this guy. Place it right in there so I'll know they'll weld together. And if I want to, I can click on that and resize just that one. If I want to make that a little bigger, I can always resize this a little bit smaller if I want. But now we can extrude. That looks reasonable. I'm going to drive them right in there. I'm going to resize that just a little bigger. By this one too. Now if I wanted to resize all of them, I can just press A and that will select all. And when I resize, now they all go. I can shrink them, whatever I want to do. Right click to undo what you're doing. But I think that looks pretty good. I want to make sure that these things are in contact, so I'm just going to grab this guy and just kind of stretch him right up in there. Alright, so I'm going to apply that one. Again, you don't have to do it this way. This is what I like to do is I don't set the 3D cursor on top of where I'm going to want it to connect. I'll set it outside and then I'll stretch it into it. So on this one I'll do, I don't know what that's supposed to be. We'll say 1.5 mil. Maybe it's supposed to be 3.2. I really don't know. So I'm going to grab that end. I'm going to bring it right on in here. I know that should be a little bigger, so I'm going to enlarge that just a little bit. Grab this one. I'm going to start extruding. And here I will kind of place my outline of where I want my metal to go. I can capture this guy. Boy, it'll fit pretty nice, to be honest. This will allow me to get a nice finish line in here. So move it right along all of this. If we wanted to do like a plate along these, we can do that. I'm going to connect it. I'm going to resize this guy a little bit. Yeah, it looks similar. Alright, so now I will apply that clasp. So now all these clasps are separate pieces, but we want them to be the same. We can weld it now, we can weld it later, but just keep in mind they are all separate. They're all named clasp over here, and you can select them all over here if you want to by just selecting one of them, press shift and hold that shift in, select the other one. Now they're all selected. Just something good to know. In the meantime, if I follow down my path here, the next is design framework. So when I click on that, it's going to select my working model and take me into sculpt mode so I can paint the framework. And so what I like to do is paint. I want to make sure I'm getting underneath the clasp. You see I bled through a little bit, and that's okay, I'll clean that up. I'm just painting. I want to make contact because this all got to be one thing. You see there's a spot here that's not. So I'm going to grab that. Where I want to clean up, I press and hold control, and it's like an eraser. This is all line of sight, so make sure you turn your model around, look around, make sure you've got everything colored. Because when we create this metal, it will do an auto smooth, which can make it a little funky, and you'll have to smooth it up manually from that point. You might have to stretch it to make contact, but the more that you've got it actually colored in and in contact, the better it will do. I've seen some people will paint purposely on the other side of it and then sculpt it back, and that's an option as well. Now I'm not painting this mesh area where we're going to put the holes. I'll do that in a minute. This time I just do this one. You can do either one you want to first, it doesn't matter. But when you have everything colored in, looks good, we'll go ahead and extract the framework. Okay, it brings it in at 1 millimeter. Again, I don't know what the thickness is supposed to be. I just try to make it look pretty close to whatever I've got there. You can slide this down. You see I'm reducing it. So that looks pretty good. Where'd I end up? At half a mil? That might be too thin. Let's do 0. It's probably close to half a mil, but let's do 6 or 7. 6. Okay, so it'd be a thin plate. And then we create framework. Just going to apply this. So now you can see there's some areas here. It brings you automatically into your smooth brush at 70%. You can change the radius up here. Little shortcut, if you press and hold your spacebar, it'll bring up here. You can change your tool. Some of these often grabbed ones. Or you can go to radius, and when you let go of your spacebar, now you can change your radius. So I'll just smooth that up. I want to make sure it's touching everywhere. If it's not, I'll grab it and pull it. All I'm smoothing up is the silver spot, not any of the green. I'm not touching the green yet. You see how I'm not touching here? I'll just come over to the grab brush. I'll grab that and just pull it so I know I'm in contact. But it's good to go along and check everything. You see a spot up here. I just want to make sure this is definitely in contact. It looks like it is. Pull that up. You see there's some open areas here. Where the area being questionable before, so I'm just double checking. Same as that one. Okay, it looks like everything's good. So now we'll exit sculpt mode. It takes us back into object mode. Now we still need to paint this area here and apply the holes. So I'm going to design framework again. And again, I'm going to paint this right where I want that mesh to be. That looks pretty good. We'll extract this framework. I know this one can be a little thinner than the other one. So we'll go 0.5. looks good. We'll create that framework again. I want to make sure everything is touching. It's not right there. Make sure everything is smooth. It looks pretty smooth. Let's see, I got a touch over here, so I'm going to go to my grab brush. Just going to grab it. Pull it. Just kind of stretching it, moving it where you want it. Okay, so that looks pretty good. We'll exit sculpt mode. Again, another saving point. If you wanted to place a nail head, you would alt-right click, place nail head, and it just brings it in. You can position it however you want to position it. And then later you would select it when you weld. I don't need it, so I'm just going to press delete to get rid of it. And let's go to the weld options. So now to weld the selected items. So we know everything we want to weld together is going to be all the green and all the silver. So we can go through and select one, shift, hold the shift button in and select all of them. One at a time here. So everything's selected, or you come over here like I was saying before and select them here, which is a little bit easier. Now here you might want to hit control because otherwise you're selecting things you don't want. So I'm going to press control and select them one at a time. I want all the clasps, and I want both RPD frames. And now we will weld the select items. Now they're all welded. Remember I was saying we could fix this later. This is where we fix that. So I like to smooth this up a little bit. We can draw all kinds of tools here. So I'm not really good at drawing. But it's possible. I prefer to use the grab tool. And place that right into the tooth if I want to. If I press control, hold control in, then it will move it in the direction of material, basically the face. So I can draw it down, I can draw it upward if I want it thicker. Just press and hold control while you're in this grab tool. Here I'm going to smooth these up. Just smooth all that. I've always found this a little fun, a little therapeutic. It looks cool. Keep in mind, smooth does a minus and an add to balance it off to make it the average. So if I wanted to thicken this up, I can go to like inflate, and that will thicken it up. Or you can do draw. There's a lot of different options here. So if I want to just thicken that up in general, I can. So you can always thicken it up and then smooth it back. So we can smooth this back. I'm just inflating it to make it look like it's man-made. Now I'll grab my grab tool. And go back to my smooth. So those clasp it pretty good. And finish smoothing my connectors up. And smooth that so it'll have a nice edge. Here we're going to want a finish line. So I'll smooth up this side of it. The other side I'll crease. I'll show you that in a second. If we go to crease, right now it's a negative, which is okay. And I just turn this down. It's at 0.25, and we'll reduce my radius quite a bit too. So I have some control. It's a little too small. There. Okay, so now this is going to crease it. And it's working slow because I turned the strength down. And it's creasing in the direction that I'm looking. So if I want to go straight down, I got to look down. So you see I punched through, and that's not good. So I'm going to actually Control Z to undo. Also tells me that's a little thin there. I'm going to come up and around. I'm going to build that back up in a second. So I'm going to go to my draw tool. I'm going to build that up. So we know that's thin. We don't want it to be thin. I smooth it back. Go back to my crease. And now if I want to, I can, on my crease, I can change it to positive. And we can crease it so it's like a pinch. So now it's giving it like an edge. So that, now you can see it happening there pretty good. Looks like we got a little loss there. So let's just build this up. Get that edge. Again, I press Control to push it in. Okay, so now we got a little finish line. I'm sure it's probably supposed to be thicker than what I did, but you got a finish line nonetheless. Let's see, anything else we want to sculpt on? That looks a little funny there. Let's smooth this up. Oh, that's why. Inflate that. Okay, so that looks like it would work. I think. We're going to say it will. We're going to come down here, exit sculpt. Now we got paint retention holes. So I'm going to paint that. Right where I want the holes. I don't want to go to the edge because it does it a little sporadic. But this is going to kind of give it a guide as to where I want the holes. Then I have to do is create the holes. And there's some holes for you. Alright, so if we want stippling, which sometimes I like this looking because it copied that palette. I would think that'd feel most natural to the patient, but I know sometimes we want to put stippling in. You just gotta paint your stippling, which puts you into this edit mode. You see these little squares. We want to select a lot of them. So to do that, the easiest way is just to press C, and it makes a circle that you can use your scroll button to make larger or smaller. And then you can press your left button, hold that in to paint. If you want to remove some, you would press and click your scroll button, and that removes it. Right click turns the C off. So I'm going to press C again. I'm just going to paint. I hit right click to turn it off. Change my position. Press C. Paint a little more. Change my circle a little bit. And I don't know, I think that'd be kind of cool to do stippling. Now you pick the amount that you want, whether you want smooth, standard, rough, extra rough. I like standard, that's why I call it standard. So when I click that, it just does a stippling effect right there. Now what we do is cut the frame to the model. So I click that, it's going to cut this to the model. It's going to take a couple minutes typically. You know it's done when this little green is no longer green, it will turn black again. Okay, so it cut the frame to the model, it turned the model off, it turned on that, remember the original model we had over here? That's what's turned on right now. You can see the space for the acrylic. Maybe it was too much space, that looks like a lot. Looks like this is a little thin, half mil might not be the right thickness, I don't know. But we've got our partial. Again, I can turn off this original model and take a look. If you wanted to sculpt, you could. I wouldn't advise it. I advise you doing it before you do your final cut, because if you sculpt on this side, there's a chance you'll be changing this side, and you have to do a manual cut, which is not quite as easy. It's not impossible, but you'll probably be calling me or sending me an email. Alright, so the last thing I do, at this point you can always save the blend file, forward that off if you can, the person you send it to can accept blends. Or if you want to export it as an STL, I think under here we might have it. Yeah, we have prepare for printing, which is preparing for cams, any kind of cam. It's just going to check to make sure the faces are in the right direction and remove any extra vertices and edges. You can see here it did 454, 484, 31. Alright, so it did do some corrections, so I click it again. I click it until I get zeros. I got 1, 1, and 0. Sometimes you're stuck on a loop with the 1, 1, and 0. It wasn't that time. Alright, so it didn't have to correct anything. Everything is correct. It's good to export. If you get stuck in a loop, just deselect, select it again, hit it again. It will usually cure the loop. But at this point, we want to make sure it's selected. Export as STL. Pick the file you want to put it in, wherever you want to put it. Name it down here, or it'll name it framework automatically. And then export your STL. And I think that covered just about everything on RPD. If you were to do a lower as well at this point, I would save this blend file, open up your original blend file, import your lower model, rename that the working model, rename this one the opposing. I mean, there's steps, and that's why it's taking me a little bit to write that code, but there is a way to do it. I just have to walk you through it. Like I said, it does take a little bit longer because you're essentially designing two separate frames, trying to combine them into one file. But you can pound your way through it until I get the code written, I suppose. It's going to be the best thing for you. But this should be ready to go.